I once again go back to the minister's words. Smart cities means smart government or smart governance on the one hand and smart people on the other. And the point stressed by Mr. Batra, implementation, there is no doubt that is the key word. And for that, I think smart people become important. And it's a question of, through all these efforts, how much are we succeeding in also making the people smart to respond to the challenge of the times as far as the mission is concerned. And that's critical. And that's why probably Preeti wanted me to share a little bit of details about the Jawaharlal Nehru mission. It was launched in 2005, and I was there from 2006 to 2010. I call it the cream period, when large number of projects were taken up all across the country, and large number of new initiatives also were taken up. But where have we reached as a result of that? I'll come to that a little later. Though this may be a little bit monotonous for some of you, but I've been traveling and I've been meeting people and talking to people. Even senior eminent citizens would come and ask, what is meant by this smart city? I feel a little lost because I thought by now the discussion process should have let people know, at least the educated, enlightened people come to know as to what is meant by a smart city. So I start off with a couple of sentences in the guidelines itself. It has been clearly stated that conceptualization of a smart city varies from city to city. So there is no one single concept which has been handed down to cities, states and cities, that this is how you will do it. So the objective, I repeat this, the objective is to promote cities that provide core infrastructure. And I'm 100% with that, because we cannot have a smart city without improving our investment in infrastructure. I love repeating these words. 70% of urban residents have access to piped water. There is a 30% who do not have access to piped water. So what is smartness going to mean for people like that? Smartness for them would be access to water at their premises and assured supply of water. That's what is critical. That would also be part of the smart agenda. So core infrastructure, and give a decent quality of life to its citizens. Now, it's generally stated, decent quality of life. I'm sure with the exercise which is currently going on in various cities, the 98 cities, to have a vision for the city and to have the smart city plan drawn up for the city. That exercise is currently going on, which will happen by December, and then the next phase of the competition as to which out of the 98 will be the first 20 cities. So there is a challenge involved in the process, and people have to be involved in this process. So decent quality of life to the citizens, a clean and sustainable environment, and application of smart features. So it's a combination. There has to be investment, so one has to find the resources for investing, whether it is improvement in water supply, waste management, mobility, all those issues. At the same time, how do we bring in technology to make these things better? So, and it clearly states government is not prescribing any particular model to be adopted by smart cities. So that's why the importance of the current exercise which is going on. Consult people, get feedback, get ideas, and when the smart city plans are to be assessed here, they will also look into the aspect as to how many suggestions or what type of suggestions came from citizens and how they have been incorporated in the smart city plan for that particular city. So there is some importance in that entire activity. Approach is not that one size fits all. I mean, that relates to the point you made. In the Jawaharlal Nehru mission, since it was, I always say, the first of its kind national flagship program for urban areas, because before that there was no such massive program for our cities. So at that time the thinking was that the focus should be on the large cities where there is a huge infrastructure gap. So focus on the 65 mission cities, though projects and programs were taken up in smaller towns as well. So that was the focus at that time. And the reform agenda of 23 reforms was given. So cities, states had to make progress with regard to implementation of the reforms, and only then funds got released for projects. So there was a time when there was some sort of hold up as far as release of funds is concerned, because states and cities were not making the type of progress they should have made as far as meeting the milestones of implementation of reforms is concerned. So that's where it got a little stuck and it got slightly delayed, and I shall come to the figures slightly later. So each city has to formulate its own concept. This is important and critical. and the exercise which you are undertaking, I hope that's driving down the thinking process of citizens all across the country, that the city has to think for itself, city has to prioritize what needs to be done. City has to have a vision, and it has to again come out of consultations. There has to be a mission and there has to be a plan. That smart city plan which will become available, it's on that basis the implementation is going to take place. So what type of a smart city would a resident of Delhi, a resident of Coimbatore, or a resident of Kolkata would want? It's entirely dependent on how the city manages in giving shape to what should be the plan. The smart city proposal will answer this. So I want to repeat this because, since, as I said, even educated people keep asking what is meant by a smart city. So it is basically this feature. I would normally say that it's something which makes life better compared to what it is today. And to make life better, of course, if someone does not have access to water, for him or her, that's what is critical. And then for cities, it would be assured hours of supply. If possible, go to 24/7. If not, assure 6 hours or 8 hours of supply. And then you charge for the water and you pay for the water on a volumetric basis, so that you are facilitating the process of O&M also. So one of the first points which I'd like to emphasize in this entire process is that of citizen engagement. And as I said, when the smart city plans are taken up here for evaluation to decide on which are the 20 which stand out, how many citizens were involved in the process, what kind of individuals or groups or communities got involved, these would be looked into. Key insights received from people, suggestions received, what is the feedback, and which of the citizen suggestions got incorporated in the smart city proposal. These are all going to be evaluated in this process. So that's why I say, we always have a tendency to, government is not doing this, government is not doing that. Here is an opportunity for we as people to partake in this process of preparing a smart city plan. The further question would be, how do we do that? I have been in some cities where this exercise is currently going on. They have consultations in different parts of the city, and they circulate questionnaires to find out what is it that an ordinary citizen expects in terms of becoming smart. So all that is getting collated at this stage, and it is on that basis the city is going to structure the plan. So citizen engagement becomes most important and critical, because it's only on that basis we will be able to reach some milestone of becoming smart. So as I said, it could be adequate water supply. There are cities which have enough bulk water supply now, but since it is not being managed well, there is something like 50% wastage of the water which is coming in. There is no billing, there is no volumetric billing. Meters do not exist in good number of cities. And as I said, access to water for people who do not have such access. All this would become important. In the area of sanitation, aim towards a zero waste city. How can one do that? What needs to be done? Assured electricity supply, 24/7, uninterrupted supply, quality supply, that also could enter the elements of a smart city vision. Intelligent traffic management. See, let's not think of, all the traffic issues will get solved overnight or in a year's time or 2 years' time because we are becoming smart. It will be a process. So we have to make a beginning somewhere, and we have to move in the direction of trying to bring about those fundamental changes, and then address the various aspects of making the city mobility as good as possible. Naturally, public transport will have to be promoted. People will have to slowly move away from use of too many private vehicles. So that type of a change in attitude also will have to come about. So only then the mobility improvement is really going to work. So it will also involve smart parking arrangement, non-vehicle streets to the extent relevant, encouraging non-motorized transport. One keeps hearing about cycling and things like that. Pedestrian-friendly footpaths. I can immediately recall a city like Chennai where they have an announced non-motorized transportation policy where they are investing in improving footpaths. And footpath is a right of the pedestrian, obstruction-free footpaths, and conforming to certain norms. There are lots of experts sitting here who could explain what is an appropriate definition of a proper footpath. And unfortunately, cities have not been able to focus on this, and footpaths are full of obstructions, so people start working on the roads. Ensuring safety of citizens, in that one of the features would be reliability of street lights, which is very important for a good number of cities where there are problems in different corners, areas of the city. And then they talk about a pan-city smart solution. We are all familiar with the three components. One of the three they have to opt for either retrofitting a part of the city or redevelopment. or a greenfield development. One of those have to be opted for during the smart city visioning exercise. At the same time, there has to be a pan-city arrangement where any of these areas can be taken up, which could be e-governance improvement for citizen services, waste management, water management, energy management, urban mobility, or other areas like telemedicine or incubation centers and skill development centers. So it's a choice essentially to be made by the city, and the city has to say how is it planning to work in this direction of achieving these objectives. I'm aware of at least 2 city situations, one in the western part of India. They have identified 6 priority areas at this stage where the smart city visioning exercise is going on. Transport and mobility, that's probably the first as far as that city is concerned. Housing, water supply and sewage, waste and sanitation, safety and security, and e-governance. There was another North Indian city which prioritized safety and security as the most important factor, and then comes the improved mobility as far as the city is concerned. So cities are looking at their issues and trying to figure out what is most important for me. I think we all agree that all changes cannot take place overnight, and we do not have the type of resources also to bring about that type of change as far as the city is concerned. So that would take me to the second point about how do we find the resources for financing. I'm sure generally we are aware that the center provides something like 100 crores per city per year, 500 crores. The state is supposed to chip in with another 500 crores. So the kitty a city has is something like 1,000 crores. In 1,000 crores, real wonders are not going to happen. So it's a question of how the cities, assisted by the state government, would be able to find additional resources. The central ministry has given a menu of possibilities. Of course, they talk about the Government of India funds, which is 500 crores. Then matching contributions on states, then user charges. But user charges would depend on the quality of service which becomes available. Are the cities in a position to improve the quality of service which they provide? Can that simultaneously happen? Only then probably there will be a tendency for people to pay for whatever services they get. And once that enters the agenda, there could be an indexation to inflation. There could be other areas like parking charges and things like that. Delhi is a classic city. I see Mr. Jain sitting somewhere here where parking happens on the road. So one can merrily, happily take away the road space for parking. But then for parking also people have to pay, so that becomes a resource for the city. Public-private partnerships. They have talked about some model documents being circulated. I'm not sure whether circulation of model documents will be sufficient if PPPs really have to take off in the Indian urban context. The lessons from the earlier urban renewal mission is that beginnings have been made, but political factors have come in, or the civil service within the local bodies have not really wanted these PPPs to succeed also. So it's a question of having a clear-cut policy as far as public-private partnership is concerned, laying down the ground rules very clearly, and also having an arrangement whereby if there are disputes, issues, one can go to a regulator and get it sorted out, rather than go back to the same local body regime and try to find solutions which is never going to work in their favor. Yes. I had asked her to alert me, so I'm halfway through, so I'll just push through now. The Finance Commission recommendations, which means some more funds will become available. Municipal bonds, if that is practical. We have some examples of cities which have taken up. Borrowing from bilaterals, they keep talking about a World Bank and ADB assistance. My experience says that it will take easily 2 to 3 to 4 years to line up such an assistance, though they talk about such assistance becoming available in 2016, unless it is already in an advanced stage. So I don't think that happening in the immediate future. Then the National Investment in Infrastructure Fund, which can be tapped, and convergence with other programs, especially Amrit, a reference was made to that. The third point I'd like to take up is that of capacity at the local bodies level. It's well understood that local bodies in the given circumstances today do not have the type of capacity, either to structure projects or even to implement. So structuring, it means dependence on consultants. Consultants prepare something and after that they are out. I am for a regime where consultants continue to be responsible till the project gets completed. I don't know whether Shailesh will agree with that, but that's the type of regime change which has to come about, because there has to be certain accountability. It cannot be that you prepare a project and after that your payment is made and you are out. So one has to stand through the process of getting it implemented and seeing to it that it is practical in the given situation. The very structure of our third level of governance, I've been raising this point, but I don't see an immediate solution to that. The government will take the call about empowering cities, empowering mayors, and having a system where there will be fixed tenure for commissioners and things like that. Probably the only safeguard we currently have is the SPV system, where one should hope there would be a CEO led by a commissioner, which may be able to do a slightly better job. Now, the last point I would like to make is, since there is not much time, but I'll just refer to the 9 years of the Urban Renewal Mission. I'll just leave you with some figures. During these 9 years, for the 65 mission cities, which were focus cities, a total of 599 projects costing about 65,000 crores got approved. Now, it's another matter. Some projects would have been approved in 2006, some would have got approved in 2010. Depends on when the city proposed the projects. Out of that, at the end of last year, out of about 600 projects, 243 projects got completed. That's where we stand. So we already have a backlog of more than 50% projects approved for cities where water supply should improve or waste management should improve. They are still not complete. What could be the factors? The overseeing arrangement, the execution arrangement, issues relating to land or other factors, or payment issues. There could be a whole lot of issues. So we have to improve our execution, and we have to be time bound about that. That's also a smart feature, I would say. The other component, the small towns component, a total of 1,036 projects approved, costing about 21,000 crores, and out of which 454 completed as at the end of last year. So that's where we stand. So on the one hand, we keep complaining about there aren't enough resources. When we have projects, resources, central assistance assured and committed, this is the pace at which we implement our projects and programs. So there has to be a fundamental change, and I think that fundamental change will emanate with citizens becoming more active as far as the city is concerned. And that type of a regime change has to happen, then we will become smart. Thank you.